देशधारणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मोहं करोति वाचालं पंगं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna, welcome you all to the today morning Bhagavad Gita discussion. We are discussing today from Bhagavad Gita City, chapter 10, text 29. I'll read the sloka. Somebody is speaking. Can you mute, please? Okay. Text 29. Anandaschasminaga nam varuno yadasam aham pitrinam artyamachasmi yamah samyam mattam aham. So the translation is, of the many hooded Nagas, I am Ananta, and among the aquatics I am the demigod Varuna. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryama, and among the dispensers of law, I am Yama, the Lord of Death. So I've been asked to speak on death. What is death? With reference to this sloka, in which there are a few points that are mentioned. Now, I'm sure that since you have already gone through the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, what is death? Birth and death. Birth is basically when the soul enters a new body, it is called birth. And when the soul leaves the body, it is called death. I mean, there is no point in discussing further on this subject. So the soul enters another body based on two things. One is one's desires, and one is and depending on the other one is regarding one's karma. So, for example, in the human form of life, one is given an intelligence to understand for self-realization. Self-realization means, who am I? What am I? The point is that we are a spirit soul, not the material body. The material body is temporary, but the soul is eternal. And this spirit soul is a part and parcel of the supreme soul. And being a part and parcel of the supreme soul, the constitutional position of the soul is to render service to the supreme soul, and that is what is called devotional service. This is the purpose of the human form of life, because the lower species of life, one cannot understand the self-realization. It is possible only in the human form of life, and maybe higher ones also. Now, if two examples which are very prominently seen, for example, somebody may be having a lot of interest in swimming. So the Lord, if the person's desire is to swim a lot, but his work is impious, that means he indulges in sinful activities, then the next life he is given the body of a fish where he fulfills that desire. And because he has performed sinful activities, he gets the body of a fish. Another example is that a lot of people who want to fly. So in such cases, what happens is that if his karma is good, and in the next life, he may even go to one of the Gandharva planets or heavenly planets where they don't require an airplane to fly. They can fly without an airplane. But if his deeds are bad, if he has indulged in impious activities, and he had the desire to fly, then he may get the body of a bird also. And within bird, it is said that an eagle can find its prey 10 kilometers away. That's why it has been given us sharp vision, which a human being does not have. So this is out of the 84 lakh species of life, there is something called transmigration of the soul. And this transmigration of the soul is facilitated by the presence of super soul. The Lord is present in everyone's heart as the all-pervading super soul, who is observing our desire, our thoughts, our actions, and everything. And at the right time, there is a destiny that is determined. Everyone has got its lifetime. The more one pious is, he has got a longer span of life. The more one is impious, he leads a shorter span of life. So the Lord as super soul observes all these things as a witness, and then he facilitates the passage or the transmigration of the soul from one body to another. which is what is called transmigration of the soul. So when the soul leaves the body, it is called death. And when the soul enters another body, it is called birth. Now, the Lord also says that if someone thinks of Krishna at the time of leaving the body, he does not take birth again in this material world, he goes back to the spiritual world. So, as long as one's consciousness is built on something, material desires and etc., so one has to continue the transmigration of soul within this material world, within the 84 lakh species of life. But then if one thinks of Krishna, he goes back to Krishna and the planet of so there are so many planets of Krishna, and then he doesn't have to come back in this material world to take birth again. So this is in a simple nutshell the understanding of birth and death. Now, when the soul leaves the body, there is a time gap between the time when the soul leaves the body and the time the soul enters another body. So we will have today discuss, because in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions about after death, those who are very sinful are taken there, and Yama arranges different kinds of punishments for them. So we will understand this point of it from this sloka regarding death. So there is a quote about Yamaraj and uh, how the soul goes where, etc. So Yamaraj is one who is the god of punishment. He is the one who awards punishment to the living entities based on their karma. And if pious people get pious results, and impious people get impious results. So we will discuss that from with reference some references from Srimad Bhagavatam. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a mention that at death, the living being sees the messengers of the Lord of Death. They are called the Yamadutas. So he sees the messengers of death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear, he passes stool and urine. Now, this is something you can realize. There are many people who passed at the time of death. They're very, very fearful. Why? Because the messengers of Yamaraj, they are called Yamadutas, and they look very, very fearful. Now, of course, we have not seen it, but there are two things. One is we see Yamaraj at the time of death, after death, or we see Krishna at the time of death. So those who don't see Krishna, they see Yamaraj, and at that time, they messengers of Yamaraj, they come and they look very, very fearful. And so at that time, after that fear, that person before death passes stool and urine on the bed itself. So this is something that we have all seen. Then what happens? Then one kind of transmigration is to go to the controller of sinful activities, who is known as Yamaraj, and the other is to go to higher planets up to Vaikunta. So here there's the teachings of Lord Kapila, which are very, very prominent in Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Kapila describes how persons engage in activities of sense gratification to maintain a family are treated by the messengers of Yamaraj called Yamadutas. And at the time of death, the Yamadutas become the custodians of those persons who have strongly gratified their senses. They take charge of the dying man and take him to the planet where Yamaraj resides. And the conditions there are described in the following verses. So I picked up a few verses. That means Yamaraj is the planet, lives in a planet very close to the earth, and those who are going to die, they see the Yamadutas, and then they take this soul with the subtle body, that is mind, intelligence, and false ego, to Yamaraj. And then Yamaraj, in this particular sloka, Lord Kapila explains. Lord Kapila is an incarnation of the God himself. So he explains as to how those who have strongly gratified their senses, like I mentioned, human life is meant for self-realization, but there are many who have gratified their senses to maintain a family that everyone has. Most of them are grihasthas in this Kali Yuga. So to maintain, people indulge in very strong sense gratification. Such personalities, such living beings, they are taken to the place where Yamaraj resides, and they go through a punishment which we will describe one by one till the time we have, such a time we have. Then the next, in another sloka, it is mentioned, the translation says, while passing on that road on the abode of Yamaraja, he falls down in fatigue and sometimes he becomes unconscious, but he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. So that passage from here to Yamaraj is not a very easy one. It's a long passage. So one has to walk through the place, and in the process, he falls down in fatigue. He's tired. Many times when you see people, we may hardly see anybody so going walking in the desert because the temperature is very harsh. The conditions are very harsh because we can't do it, but a camel may do it. So many times the living being becomes unconscious, but again, he is forced, he has to compulsorily walk. And this way, he is brought to the presence of Yamaraj. Then, one sloka there is mentioned that his entrails are pulled out by the hounds and vultures of hell, even though he is still alive to see it. And he is subjected to torment by serpents, scorpions, gnats, and other creatures that bite him. So, from this translation, we can understand that in the hellish planets, there are many hellish planets also. There are many heavenly planets and there are many hellish planets also. So, which hellish planets? That is not much of a mentioned detail. Uh, so, in this translation, it is mentioned that there are many different species of life who are all like we see the vultures here, and then we have hounds, and these creatures, they torment, and there are also serpents, scorpions, and other creatures that bite the gross body, the subtle body. In the sense, like I mentioned, the soul is covered by the subtle body. So when we are bitten by this thing, by a scorpion or snake in the material world, we feel pain because we have a gross body. But when there is no gross body, then there is a subtle body. It is the mind that con conveys the pain through the intelligence. So in the hellish planets also, there are all these creatures who bite the living being, and he feels a lot of pain at that time, but he has to tolerate it. Then in the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a mention, uh, yeah, a person who appropriates another's legitimate wife, children, or money is arrested at the time of death by the fierce Yamadotas, who bind him with the rope of time and forcibly throw him into the hellish planets known as Tamisra. On this very dark planet, the sinful man is chastised by the Yamadutas, who beat and rebuke him. He is starved and he is given no water to drink. Thus, the wrathful assistants of Yamaraj cause him severe suffering, and sometimes he faints from their chastisement. So, from this also we will understand a few important points. Now, in a Grihastha, one has got a wife, a husband has got a wife, he's got children also. So many times, but the husband and wife are supposed to live in a regulated manner. Otherwise, they are called grihamedis. But many times, sometimes we see people trying to enjoy with a woman of someone else who may be a wife for somebody else. That is why it is mentioned here, a person who appropriates another's legitimate wife, which is a very common feature these days. Then children or money. People make loot a lot of money of others, or there is kidnapping of children. So what happens to them? At the time of death, the fierce Yamadutas come, who bind him with a rope of time and forcibly throw him into a hellish planet known as Tamisra. On this very dark planet, the sinful man is chastised by the Yamadutas, who beat and rebuke him. He is starved and he is given no water to drink. Thus, the wrathful assistants of Yamaraja cause him severe suffering, and sometimes he faints from their chastisement. So, those who commit sinful activities like these, which I mentioned, they have to go through a lot of punishment, and they have no food or water to eat or drink. So, they have to go through a severe type of suffering from the Yamadutas. That is another quote in the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which says, in this life, an envious person commits violence against many living entities. Therefore, after his death, when he is taken to hell by Yamaraj, those living entities who were hurt by him appear as animals called rurus to inflict very severe pain upon him. Learned scholars call this hell Raurava. Not generally seen in this world, the Ruru is more envious than a snake. So it is said in the material world that a snake is the most envious person, envious species of life in this material world. So from this loka, we can understand that those who are very, very envious, after their death, they are taken to hell by Yamaraj to this place called, to his hellish planet called Raurava. And there, that Rurus, who are the living entities in that, like I said, there are living entities in all the hellish planets also. These Rurus, Rauravas, are more envious than a snake. So a person who goes into that hellish planet has to suffer a lot of biting from the snakes in this planet. Then there is a quote in the fifth canto itself. It says, for the maintenance of their bodies and satisfaction of their tongues, cruel persons cook poor animals and birds alive. Such persons are condemned even by man-eaters. In their next life, they are carried by Yamadutas to the hell known as Kumbhipaka, where they are cooked in boiling oil. So, like I mentioned, there is something called karma. So, there are many who take animals, they cook them alive. Yeah, they take even birds and they cook them also alive. So, such people who are uh, performing such sinful activities, they are taken by Yamadutas to the place known as Kumbhipaka, where they are boiled, actually cooked in boiling oil. Another quote. Uh, yeah. A person who, in the absence of an emergency, robs a Brahmana or indeed anyone else of his gems and gold is put into a hell known as Sandamsha. There his skin is torn and separated by red hot iron balls and tongs. In this way, his entire body is cut to pieces. As per Shastras, I have not taken that quote today, but I remember there is a quote in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that if one steals a property that is belonging to a Brahmana, he has to take the birth of a worm in the stool in the next birth. But this also it is mentioned that one goes to a hell called uh, anyway, there are a lot of people who indulge in stealing. They have to go to a hellish planet called Sandamsa. There his skin is torn and separated by red hot iron balls and tongs. In this way, his body is cut to pieces. So these are the sufferings that one goes through in hellish planets. There is another quote in fifth canto, which says, in this life, a man of a higher class, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, is very fond of taking his pet dogs, mules, or asses into the forest to hunt and kill animals unnecessarily. He is placed after death into the hell known as Prana Rodha. There, the assistants of Yamaraj make him their targets and pierce him with arrows. So those who take their pet animals to the forest to kill other animals and for unnecessarily, they go into this hellish planet where they are target or they are pierced by arrows. So Srila Prabhupada gives a quote regarding from his experience in Western during his travels in Western countries. There they indulge. It may not be very common here, but they indulge in these things. That means Brahmana, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are not supposed to do this. But Shudras are given a chance to promote themselves. But if anyone indulges in hunting, they have to suffer for this. And this hellish planet has got full of pus, urine, and stool. That is where the planet is. I'm sure that nobody would like to stay in a place where it is just full of pus, urine, and stool. In another quote, there's a mention that there are men and women in this world who sacrifice human beings to Bhairava or Bhadrakali and then eat their victims' flesh. those who perform such sacrifices are taken after death to the abode of Yamaraj, where their victims, having taken the form of Rakshasas, cut them to pieces with sharpened swords, just as in this world the man-eaters drank their victims' blood, dancing and singing in jubilation. Their victims now enjoy drinking the blood of sacrifices and celebrating in the same way. So I mentioned the beginning about of the class about desire. So if those who have got desire to eat meat and offer them to Bhairava or Bhadrakali, they are taken to this planet, and there they are offered as a sacrifice, and the residents of this planet drink the blood of this living being. In another canto, in the fifth canto itself, place it is mentioned that in this life, some people give shelter to animals and birds that come to them for protection in the village or forest. And after making them believe that they will be protected, such people pierce them with lances or threads and play with them like toys, giving them great pain. Uh, Now, I'll pause at this moment for a description on this. This I'm, may not be prevalent much in India, but I know there are countries like Thailand and yeah, mostly generally in Thailand, where people bring dogs, groom the dogs, and finally the dog feels that it is under the protection of the master. But then later on, the Thailandese, they have a desire to eat the flesh of the same dog which they have groomed, and the dog feels protected. This is just an example, and it is said that they eat snakes and scorpions and everything. So for those people who do this activity, after death, such people are brought by the assistance of Yamaraj to the hell known as Suraprota, where their bodies are pierced with sharp needle-like lances. They suffer from hunger and thirst, and sharp-beaked birds such as vultures and herons come at them from all sides to tear at their bodies. So such people will have to see these herons and vultures tearing their bodies. Tortured and suffered, they can remember the sinful activities they committed in the past. So these living beings are tortured and put into suffering so much, then they remember, oh, I have committed so many sinful activities, is it? So this is how the Lord as Paramatma helps us to remember. Then another place there is a mention. In the province of Yamara, there are hundreds and thousands of hellish planets. The impious people must all enter into these various planets according to the degree of their impiety. So I mentioned four sinful activities: no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. So different types of people who perform these sinful activities, impious activities in two different degrees. Then there's a mention, the purport continues. Those who are pious, however, enter other planetary systems, namely the planets of the demigods. Nevertheless, both the pious and the impious are again brought to earth after the results of their pious or impious acts are exhausted. So we will understand a little bit from this translation. Here, it's explained that uh, there are those who commit pious activities also. Like those who are impious, there are many who commit pious activities. For example, somebody may be giving in charity to schools, hospitals, etc. Somebody may be doing something good to the others. So all pious activities results in pious results. But those who perform pious results, they go to the planets of demigods. But what happens is that once the reactions for those pious activities get exhausted, again they have to come back to earth uh, and take birth in one of the species of life. Uh, so those who perform impious activities, they go to hellish planets. Those who perform pious activities they go to heavenly planets. Uh, Another quote from the sixth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I think it's a very long purport. I will not be able to cover. I'll take something else in the meantime. Yes. Uh, Once more, this is a quote from the sixth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes. and I'll take important part of this purport. I'll not go through the details of the pastime. One's body is created through the agency of Maya, and according to one's activities in this life, another vehicle is created again under the supervision of Daivi Maya. At the appropriate time, one's next body is immediately chosen, and both the individual soul and super soul transfer to that particular bodily machine. This is the process of transmigration, which I mentioned. So during transmigration from one body to the next, the soul is taken away by the order carriers of Yamaraj and put into a particular type of hellish life, that is called Naraka, in order to become accustomed to the condition in which he will live in his next body. So Yamaraj gives a order that this living being will be put into a body of a human being or a demigod or a lower species of life. Uh, so he gets trained in this hellish planet so that when the training is over, after the punishment is over, he gets trained in this hellish planet and then he is put into the respective planet, whether hell or heaven or earth, so that when he enters that body, he can act according to the body, that particular body. For example, if somebody is to enter a body of a tiger, then he has to drink blood. So he gets a practice and he gets a training in that hellish planet. One more quote. It is now clear that as a consequence of such activities, sinful person must be thrown into hellish conditions meant for those who have broken religious principles and must suffer extreme miseries. These are in a nutshell. I'm not going into further because we don't have time. But before I conclude, I want to show you one thing, two important points. Uh, yes, Tilaka and Tulsi beads. Uh, it's in the There are so many Puranas which describe, and one of the quote is that persons who have put tulsi beads on the neck, who mark 12 places of their bodies as Vishnu temples with Vishnu symbolic representations, and who have Vishnu tilaka on their foreheads, are to be understood as devotees of Lord Vishnu in this world. Their presence makes the body purified, and anywhere they remain, their place is as good as Vaikuntha. So that is why we have a system of chanting 16 rounds and wearing, after initiation, they give a tilaka, tulsi beads. And of course, the tilaka is, our body is marked with tilaka in all these places. Those who have these in their bodies at the time of death, they don't see Yamaraj, but they see Lord Vishnu's like we have Yamadutas, there are Vishnu Dutas. And so Vishnu Dutas take the soul to one of the Vaikuntha planets and they can remain there without taking birth in this material world again. Of course, another quote, persons who are decorated with Tilaka or Gopi Chandan and who mark their bodies all over the names of the Lord and whose necks and breasts are there with Tulsi beads are never approached by Yamadutas. The same quote which says that Yamadutas don't approach such personalities who have marked their bodies with tilaka and they have uh, uh, tulsi mala in their neck. So this is in a nutshell for the time that we have and for the subject I was given. This I conclude the class for the day. If you have got any one question, I can take.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.